I'm Allan Aguirre, host of the Chameleon Church Show on Messianic Lamb Video Network. Join me and my co-hosts, Rabbi Darryl Weinberg and Jamie Louie, every Tuesday morning at 8:45 Central. Jeez. Well, hey, Darryl, Marilyn's asking about the Falls Israel celebration. Didn't you have a weekend deal you had to go through? You did this weekend?
It was on Sunday night. There's a woman who is part of. There's a group. Do you remember the airport vineyard? The whole fuss that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they've changed the name to Catch the Fire. It's been like that they've rebranded it because the airport was too toxic. So they've got a couple of home fellowships that are going on down in Hamilton, Niagara Falls area and whatnot. And so there's this one woman who in the last couple of years has had a passion and desire to do a Bless Israel thing. And so last year she started this and they did it again this year. And so what they do is they just out in the park, right across from the falls, like you can see the falls from where we are. And so they had on the stage, they've got all these different acts, and there's a Messianic act, Dan and Melissa David, they're Messianic music couple. There was a native Indian couple who are believers, and they have a love for Israel. You got all these people. You had the Israel consulate general, you got a Holocaust survivor, and so all these people were contributing. And it's just a love fest for Israel from the Christian community. So we went down for that. I did a lot of networking. It was really kind of cool. It was neat to watch, but there are some things that I think that we really need to help them with. Because one thing that was really clear to my wife and I is that it was very Christian in its format. When the charismatics get a love on for Israel, they get that kind of wild, crazy look in their eyes, and all they want to do is they want to run around and wave flags.
Oh my gosh!
You've seen that before, right?
Oh my gosh!
A guy that I used to work with many years ago in Chosen People Ministries, Allan Shore. He lives up in Washington State, and he's a Messianic believer. Came from New York. And he described Messianic congregations as 2 crazy Jews, 2 normal Jews, and 40 Gentiles that want to blow the shofar. That was his definition of a Messianic congregation.
Oh my gosh!
So you get these charismatics out there, and they love Israel, and I think I do think it's heartfelt. I do believe that God has put a love for them on. But one of the things that we really notice is that there's all this focus on Israel and praying for Israel and everything else. But it had nothing to do with the Jewish community in Niagara Falls. And where Gentiles really kind of get tripped up is that all the focus is on the land. And in the Messianic movement amongst the Gentile people, and whether you've got the ICEJ and they're represented there or whatever, there's this romanticized ideal about Israel. And when they think of Israel, they go to the Wailing Wall, and you've got all the black hatters, and they're davening at the wall, praying and everything else. But there's a disconnect between that and real Jewish ministry, because in order to reach the Jewish community, you've got to entirely change your paradigm. And coming at it with a Christian perspective, and we love Israel, we bless Israel, that's not going to attract the Jewish people. It's not going to do it. You're not going to reach Jewish people with the gospel with that kind of presentation. And it's really difficult for people who aren't of Jewish background and culture to make that transition. And one of the things that I've struggled with in our ministry most of all is trying to communicate that message to Gentile people, that if you want to be effective, how do you bless Israel? You share the gospel with the Jewish people. It's not just about funding projects and, bringing immigrants back to Israel and stuff like that, which I'm actually against. I don't think bringing unbelievers back to the land of Israel is a good idea. I think you reach them with the gospel in whatever country that they're in, and maybe God's put them through hardship in order to bring them to Him. I'm all for sending believers back to Israel, but Israel is one of the hardest places in the world to get the gospel. Why would you send an unbeliever back there? So you've got all these ministries like Bridges for Peace and things like that, and they actually prohibit you from sharing the gospel with Jewish people.
Right. It's not lawful. You can't proselytize in Israel.
No, but they will actually forbid you to do it. And so, listen, I understand that if you're trying to develop a relationship with the Israeli government, you want to get in there, you want to show friendship, evangelism. But if the opportunity comes up, you should be able to say, well, hey, this is what I believe. Don't make a big deal about it. But for them to actually say, and it's not just in Israel, they will forbid you wherever you go. So it's like, well, how are you actually showing love to them if you're not sharing Messiah with them?
Right.
So
I have a Messianic brother, him and his family, they're trying to make Aliyah, and they've had to spend like the last, I don't know how many years doing nothing that was, that would connect them with evangelism, Christianity, Messianic Judaism, whatever, so whenever he's here, he's, we've seen him, I don't know, a handful of times since we moved to Utah. He's got you can't add him to any of your social media, because if they do a search on me, they'll find all sorts of stuff, He's there now. He's there. So he's been having to go in and out of Israel for like the last handful of years.
Right.
And so he's there right now, and I'm not sure how long they'll be there. And he's a filmmaker. He's a documentary filmmaker for Christian organizations.
There's a wonderful,
always in very questionable, countries where you can't have those stamps on your passport.
Right. Exactly. One of the speakers at this event on Sunday night, their organization actually supports Messianic congregations in Israel. And there's a guy I could really connect with, because Messianic congregations struggle in Israel incredibly. The Orthodox in Israel, they have an inordinate amount of power and influence, and they are very, very hostile to Messianics, like to the point where they will, a number of years ago, there was a Christian pastor who got a bomb in the mail. And
I was just about to bring that up. Do you know about that story?
Yeah.
Okay, I was in his house a month after that happened. I was just going to bring him up when you were done talking.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's like Puerto Rican or something like that, and his wife's a New York Jew, and they've been living there in Ariel, and it was on Purim.
Right.
A gift was left on the door. They lived in a condo, and they had an upper condo on the third floor that they used to gather. That's where they had their meetings, was inside the condo, and they lived in a condo underneath it. And so the kid, Ariel, was like, 15. No, I forgot. He was 14, 15 or something like that. I forgot what his name was. Brought the package in, was on the phone with his mom. Hey, da-da-da-da. He opened it, and it blew up.
And it was for his father.
Right. And it was bad.
Yeah.
I mean, cars down below were blown out. I mean, it was bad. The kid survived it.
Yeah.
And because he was a kid and a kid was involved, it got press. But it was there's a lot. So anyway, I was in their house the day the kid came home from the hospital. And so we met him and everything. And I got pissed. So our guide, our friend Rami, asked, he goes, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm not okay. We're back in the States complaining about the price of gasoline. Freaking people are getting blown up over here because of Jesus." It was a military trigger. I mean, I know information. I probably shouldn't talk about it. I mean, I'm sure it's out now, but it was like, this was bad. There were military triggers in this device. There was a hit. It was a professional hit.
Yep.
That imposters were in Ariel impostoring Jews and telling you about Jesus. Their faces were on flyers, him and his leadership, and it had been circulating throughout. I mean, along, all the way up to the Med, which is pretty far, about these imposters that were in Ariel, and basically calling a hit on them with their home address and all that stuff. And it was an American Messianic, American Zionist or somebody that was in the land that did it or whatever. Anyway, there's so much cloak and dagger stuff that went on with that. The Cortez family, I believe it was bad. And so there's like a whole faction, I think is where you were going, that are very jihadist about it. And
Yeah,
that's something they don't want you to know.
No, and
we're talking some serious stuff here. Yeah.
Well, we are, but again, when it comes to Jewish ministry, they've got to get the rose-colored glasses off.
Dude, people have Kabbalah stuff on their walls. Oh, I got it in Israel. You can't have it on your wall, woman. They don't know. Get the Shabbat Shalom freaking plaque, but don't get the Kabbalah hand.
The Hamsa there, which is the hand with the all-seeing eye in the middle.
Yeah, they don't know. They're stupid. It's from Israel and there's Hebrew on it. It's okay.
Well, I mean, Kabbalah is just Gnosticism that's wrapped in Jewish stuff. As a matter of fact, it's interesting you mentioned that. When we had a couple in Toronto that was at our congregation, we went over to their place for Shabbat dinner one night, and she actually brought it out, and I said, you shouldn't have that in your house because it's Kabbalistic.
Yep.
And we had a couple of Israeli friends that lived on the street with us when we lived in Vaughan. And she went to Israel and she brought us back a gift, and she brought us the Hamsa. Yeah. And my wife said to her, she says, I am so sorry. She said, but we can't accept that. And she explained it to her. And, this poor girl, she's just kind of looking at her and it's just like, you're rejecting our gift. And she says, we really love the fact that you gave us the gift, but what's attached to that we can't accept. I mean, it was a hard conversation for my wife.
We've been in people's homes, and they're like, because it's almost like didn't we talk about Jerusalem syndrome last week? But it's like it's the same idea. It's like they're very it's like there's this weird thing they need to do. It's weird, right? Because you'll be in somebody's home and they think, oh, well, you're a messianic, you're like Ministries Walking when we were touring all these guest homes, and they were like, and they try to connect with us and through Jewish stuff, and it's like that's just goofy in and of itself, right? And they'd have this stuff in their homes and would have to say something, that's not good. What you have in your house right there, that's not good, and it pisses people off.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was disappointed, I think, more than anything else, and probably somewhat heard about it. And we tried to explain it the best that we could, but that's where you got to take a stand. And even if it jeopardizes the relationship, you're just praying that one day later on down the road, they'll realize what it is that you did and why. But like I said, in Jewish ministry, and this is what was really highlighted to us at this whole Israel celebration, is just like, you people I understand the desire to bless Israel, but blessing Israel is different from blessing Jewish people. And if you really want to bless the Jewish people, then you've got to get in there, you've got to develop the relationships, and you've got to be able to help them to understand. I've mentioned a couple of times, I think, my 50th birthday is next Sunday. And we are having, I don't do shameless self-promotion. No, but we don't do birthdays in my family. It's not a big deal, but this is kind of a milestone. It's more on the lines of I made it. And after being in ministry for almost 20 years, I think that, something I could probably boast about. But it's an opportunity, number one, for me to get my family together who don't believe. But number two, I've also said to everybody, instead of bringing gifts, we're going to take up a collection for the kids in Kenya. And actually, there was one person already on our chat who participates with Lamb Radio who sent us a card with some money for them. So thank you very much. Who you are.
Very cool.
And, I told the pastor yesterday in Kenya, and he's really excited about it. He's really pumped. He's having me speak again this Saturday. So the guy's got me working twice a month now. But I've got also, in addition to my family, I've got some friends, some of whom are Jewish, who are coming up. They're going to participate. All these people know I'm a believer. And I have spent years cultivating a relationship with them. They don't believe what I do, but because of the fact that I understand their mindset, but because of the fact that I understand where they're coming from and I know the objections, I'm able to cross that divide. And it's not just about me being a wild-eyed Christian wanting to share Jesus with them, but rather that there's been a transformation in my life because of what Messiah has done. And I can recognize who he is. Thursday, I have a meeting in Toronto, the West End of Toronto, and I am going to meet Jimmy Hoffa's ex-driver. And the guy's got a book out, and they're making a movie about him.
I think I heard something about that.
Marvin, his last name escapes me right now. But anyway, he claims to know where Jimmy's buried. I'm just saying.
Doesn't everybody?
Yeah. No, he does know.
Oh my gosh.
But he was a
What
driver.
a great role. Jack Nicholson does a great role. Great job on the movie.
He was a driver for both Jimmy Hoffa and John Gotti. And he's 85 years old. His health is failing, and he is connected with a Pentecostal Jamaican who helped us coordinate the Toronto Seder. So she put me in touch with this guy. The guy called, we get on the phone. He says, Rabbi, this and that. So the reason I'm going to meet with him on Thursday is because he's got his book and he wants to give me an autographed copy. So I have an opportunity to get together with this guy, and it's going to be about 120 miles each way for me to go see this guy and have lunch with him. And the three of us are going to get together. Now, Karen, she's got a relationship with him and everything else, and she's been able to kind of help him, but she has no idea how to preach the gospel to this guy. And so I'm going there. Guy's 85. How much time does he have left? I'm going there, and I'm going to sit with this guy, and I'm going to explain to him how it is that I came to faith in the Messiah of Israel. And I'm praying that God opens his heart for him and his wife, because, man, this is an opportunity. But this is what it's all about.
Yeah.
So you got this woman, she's, he calls her all the time about what to do and this and that and the other thing. But when it comes to the gospel, I asked her, so have you shared the gospel with him? And she says, no, because she doesn't know how. And this is where our ministry comes in and says, I grew up. I know the mindset. I know exactly what these people are thinking. I know the language and everything else. That's how you bless Israel. Right. That's how you bless the Jewish people. You don't just get together, wave a bunch of flags and blow a bunch of shofarim and then expect that, the Jews are going to come running. It doesn't work that way. You want to talk about hard work? You want to talk about promoting yourself and having to get out there and do the 10X rule in music ministry? It's the same thing in Jewish ministry.
So then my white linen garb isn't going to help?
Probably not.
Well, thanks for sharing, Darryl. With Lynn's saying thanks for sharing that information. We knew that you were up to something this weekend, so thanks for that. I'm Allan Aguirre, host of the Chameleon Church Show on Messianic Lamb Video Network. Join me and my co-host, Rabbi Darryl Weinberg and Jamie Louie every Tuesday morning at 8:45 Central.